The 1980s were a strange, electric time for Marvel animation. Before cinematic universes, before billion-dollar budgets, these heroes survived on raw imagination, limited animation, and fearless storytelling. Some shows vanished too early, some were misunderstood, some were ahead of their time. Today they feel unfinished, waiting for redemption. These are 15 Marvel cartoons from the 80s that deserve a true comeback. Number 15, Spider-Man, 1981. This version of Spider-Man arrived during a strange transitional era when Marvel cartoons were still learning how serious they could be. The animation was stiff and reused constantly, but the tone was darker than audiences expected. Peter Parker is portrayed as lonely, anxious, and isolated. He does not crack jokes constantly. He broods. He doubts himself. That emotional weight makes this series feel surprisingly modern. What truly makes this show comeback-worthy is how it treats responsibility. Every episode circles the idea that power is a burden, not a gift. Villains are not colorful jokes. They are criminals, scientists, and monsters who ruin lives. The city feels hostile and uncaring. Peter is always one mistake away from disaster. A modern revival could keep this serious tone while updating the animation and expanding character arcs. Imagine multi-episode stories exploring Peter burnout, public distrust, and moral failure. This show was closer to a dramatic character study than a kid's cartoon. That idea was abandoned too soon. Number 14, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, 1981. At first glance, this looks like a light, silly show. Bright colors, catchphrases, laugh tracks, and simple morals. But underneath that surface is one of Marvel Animation's most ambitious experiments. It was the first cartoon to build a shared Marvel universe on television. Characters crossed over constantly. The X-Men, Hulk, Thor, and Doctor Doom all appeared. Firestar and Iceman gave Spider-Man a team dynamic that modern Marvel still struggles to balance. Friendship, loyalty, and disagreement drive the stories. Episodes often revolve around teamwork failing before it succeeds. That emotional rhythm feels timeless. A comeback could embrace the ensemble concept fully. Instead of solo hero obsession, this series could become Marvel Animated Team Hub. Episodic stories mixed with longer arcs. Humor balanced with consequence. It laid the groundwork for everything that came later, but never got credit for it. Number 13, The Incredible Hulk, 1982. This Hulk series leans heavily into tragedy. Bruce Banner is not a superhero first. He is a fugitive. Every episode feels like a chase. The Hulk is not celebrated. He is feared, hunted, and misunderstood. This tone separates it sharply from later action-focused adaptations. What makes it comeback-worthy is how carefully it handles isolation. Bruce never stays anywhere long. Every connection he makes is temporary. The Hulk destroys what Bruce tries to build. That cycle repeats relentlessly and painfully. Modern animation could amplify this emotional core. Fewer villains, more character-driven stories, a focus on trauma, rage control, and identity. The show already understood that Hulk works best as a metaphor, not a mascot. It deserves a second life that leans fully into that darkness. Number 12, Fantastic Four, 1981. This Fantastic Four series arrives with a strange reputation. Often dismissed as cheap or simplistic, it is actually one of the most conceptually faithful Marvel cartoons of its era. Instead of treating the team as generic superheroes, the show leans hard into science fiction wonder. Space anomalies, alternate dimensions, time fractures, and cosmic threats dominate the stories. That choice makes it feel far larger than its animation budget suggests. Reed Richards is portrayed as obsessive and distracted. His genius isolates him from his family. Sue Storm is not passive. She is the emotional center holding a fragile unit together. Johnny Storm represents reckless youth while Ben Grimm embodies resentment and grief. These dynamics are rarely loud, but they are consistent. That consistency gives the show emotional credibility. What truly makes this series deserve a comeback is its restraint. It does not rush spectacle. It allows ideas to breathe. Episodes often begin quietly with experiments gone wrong before escalating into existential danger. That structure mirrors modern prestige storytelling more than 80s cartoon formulas. A revival could finally give this concept the animation it deserves. Deep space visuals, slow-burning arcs, emotional consequences that carry forward. The original show understood that the Fantastic Four are explorers, first heroes second. That understanding was ahead of its time and still feels underused today. Number 11. The New Fantastic Four, 1978. This series is often remembered only for what it lacks. Reed Richards is missing. Human Torch is replaced by a robot. That absence overshadowed everything else. But when viewed without expectation, this show becomes fascinating. It reimagines the Fantastic Four as a defensive unit reacting to constant global threats rather than cosmic explorers. Ben Grimm becomes the heart of the show. His frustration is no longer balanced by Reed's calm logic. Sue Storm takes on leadership responsibility she never fully held before. The team dynamic feels unstable and reactive. That instability gives the series an anxious edge uncommon for the era. The robot replacement is often mocked, but conceptually, it introduces questions about artificial life and loyalty. The robot struggles to understand humanity. He wants to belong, but never fully can. That theme mirrors Ben's struggle in a quieter way. A modern comeback could embrace this alternate lineup as a limited series. Not a replacement, but an exploration. What happens when leadership vanishes? How teams adapt under pressure? How flawed substitutes reveal hidden strengths. This version was never meant to be definitive. It was meant to experiment. That experiment deserves reevaluation with modern storytelling maturity. Number 10. Spider-Man Japanese Series, 1981. This version of Spider-Man is the most misunderstood Marvel cartoon ever produced. Dismissed for its radical departures, it is actually one of the boldest adaptations ever attempted. It fuses superhero myth with Japanese tokusatsu traditions. Giant robots, transformation sequences, and operatic villains redefine what Spider-Man can be. At its core, this series treats Spider-Man as a chosen warrior rather than an accidental hero. That shift changes everything. Responsibility is not a burden forced onto Peter. It is a destiny accepted. The tone becomes mythic. Episodes feel like morality plays wrapped in spectacle. What makes this series comeback-worthy is its fearless creativity. It refuses to obey Western expectations. It reinvents iconography without apology. Modern Marvel struggles with this kind of bold reinvention. This show proves it can work. A revival could blend anime aesthetics with Marvel lore intentionally rather than cautiously. Multiverse storytelling makes this version more relevant than ever. Instead of hiding it, Marvel could celebrate it as a parallel legacy. It is strange, unapologetic, and wildly imaginative, exactly what a comeback should be. Number 9. The Marvel Superheroes, 1966. This series technically predates the 80s, but its influence bleeds directly into them. It aired endlessly in reruns throughout the decade, shaping how an entire generation first encountered Marvel mythology. Limited animation, cut-out motion panels, and stiff poses became part of its identity. But those limitations forced something unexpected. The stories carried weight. Dialogue mattered. Moral conflict mattered. Characters spoke in dramatic declarations and ethical dilemmas rather than jokes. Captain America felt like a soldier out of time. Iron Man wrestled with ego and responsibility. Submariner was tragic and furious. Hulk was pure rage and sorrow. These portrayals were blunt but emotionally clear. What makes this series deserve a comeback is its purity. It does not chase trends. It treats superheroes like modern mythology. Every episode feels like a moving comic book brought to life with seriousness and intent. Modern animation often hides behind irony. This show never did. A revival could preserve that stripped-down intensity. Stylized animation inspired by Jack Kirby art. Minimal motion but powerful voice acting. Focus on narration and internal conflict. Not every comeback needs speed. Some need gravity. This series proved Marvel could work as dramatic literature for animation. That lesson still matters. Number 8. Captain America, 1966. Captain America animation has always struggled to find the right tone. Too patriotic feels hollow. Too critical feels cynical. This early series walked a strange line that later 80s reruns kept alive. Steve Rogers is not triumphant. He is stiff, uncomfortable, and often uncertain. He represents ideals that feel increasingly out of place. What makes this series comeback-worthy is how it unintentionally portrays cultural displacement. Captain America fights criminals, not wars. His enemies are greedy, corrupt, and morally hollow. He stands against selfishness more than ideology. That framing feels deeply relevant today. The limited animation forced focus on narration. Steve's internal monologues often reveal doubt. He questions whether symbols still matter. whether sacrifice is worth misunderstanding. These moments were subtle but present. A modern revival could lean fully into this identity struggle, a man built for a moral battlefield that no longer exists. Episodic stories about relevance, legacy, and restraint. Captain America works best when he is not shouting but questioning. This early series hinted at that truth long before modern adaptations caught up. Number 7. The Incredible Hulk and the Amazing Spider-Man, 1981. This crossover experiment is often forgotten, but conceptually it was daring. Two heroes with opposite emotional cores forced into shared stories. Hulk represents uncontrollable rage. Spider-Man represents controlled responsibility. Their interactions are tense, awkward, and often tragic. The show uses Hulk as a warning mirror for Peter Parker. What happens when power overwhelms identity? What happens when control fails? Spider-Man watches Bruce Banner with fear, not admiration. That dynamic adds emotional depth rarely seen in kids' animation of the era. What makes this series deserve a comeback is its focus on contrast rather than spectacle. The fights matter less than the consequences. Hulk destruction horrifies Peter. Peter optimism frustrates Bruce. Neither fully understands the other. A revival could expand this duality across longer arcs. Two men defined by transformation struggling to accept different outcomes. Animation today could finally give this relationship the nuance it deserves. This series was quietly exploring psychological themes years before audiences were ready. Number 6. The Incredible Hulk Syndicated Series, 1982. This version of the Hulk often blends into memory with other adaptations, but it deserves its own identity. The syndicated format allowed darker, slower stories without the pressure of network oversight. Episodes feel quieter, more somber, and emotionally heavy. Bruce Banner drifts through towns like a ghost, never staying long enough to heal. What separates this series is its commitment to loneliness. There is no team, no long-term allies. Every relationship is temporary and fragile. The Hulk always ruins what Bruce tries to protect. That inevitability creates a sense of tragic doom that hangs over every episode. The Hulk himself is portrayed less as a weapon and more as a curse. His appearances are chaotic, frightening, and rarely victorious. He saves lives but destroys futures. That moral contradiction makes the series emotionally exhausting in the best way. A modern comeback could embrace this tone fully. Serialized storytelling focused on trauma, anger management, and self-exile. Minimal villains, maximum introspection. The Hulk works best when he is a tragedy, not a spectacle. This series understood that instinctively and deserves revival with modern emotional depth. Number 5. X-Men Pride of the X-Men, 1989. This animated pilot is legendary for what it promised but never delivered. It introduced the X-Men with seriousness, scale, and moral gravity rarely seen in animation at the time. The tone is urgent, almost apocalyptic. Mutants are hunted, feared, and marginalized. The world feels hostile and dangerous. Kitty Pryde serves as audience entry point. Her confusion, fear, and moral awakening ground the story. Wolverine is aggressive, intimidating, and morally gray. Magneto is not a cartoon villain. He is ideological and terrifying. The conflict feels real and unresolved. What makes this pilot deserve a comeback is its honesty. It does not soften the metaphor. Discrimination is central. Fear drives violence. Power invites retaliation. These themes feel even more relevant today. A revival could finally realize what this pilot hinted at: long-form storytelling, political tension, ethical ambiguity. The X-Men thrive when they reflect societal fractures. This series was ready to do that decades before it was allowed to. Number 4. Spider-Man, the Animated Legacy Era, 1985, influence years. Though fragmented across specials and reruns, Spider-Man presence throughout the mid-80s created a strange, unofficial continuity. Different voices, tones, and styles shared one idea: Spider-Man as working-class hero, constantly under pressure. These portrayals emphasized exhaustion. Peter is always late, broke, and overwhelmed. Victories feel small and temporary. That realism anchored the character more than flashy animation ever could. What makes this era comeback-worthy is its grounded humanity. Spider-Man is not a symbol. He is a person barely holding things together. Modern adaptations often forget that simplicity. A revival inspired by this era could strip Spider-Man back down. Street-level stories, personal consequences, Emotional fatigue. The 80s quietly understood Spider-Man pain better than many modern versions. Number 3. The Incredible Hulk animated TV specials era, 1987 to 1989. During the late 80s, the Hulk existed in a strange animated limbo. He appeared in TV specials, crossover moments, and experimental one-off stories, rather than a single stable series. That instability actually worked in his favor. Each appearance felt isolated, heavy, and emotionally raw. These stories leaned into the idea of the Hulk as a living disaster. Bruce Banner is exhausted, haunted, and permanently on the run. There is no fantasy of cure, no promise of resolution. The Hulk is permanence. That bleak honesty separated these stories from more hopeful superhero cartoons of the time. What makes this era deserve a comeback is its willingness to end without comfort. Episodes often conclude with Bruce leaving again alone, unchanged, and emotionally fractured. That kind of ending is rare in animation even today. A revival could embrace this anthology approach. Different towns, different moral dilemmas, different human costs. The Hulk does not fix the world. He exposes its cruelty and moves on. That tragic structure feels perfectly suited for modern audiences who crave emotional realism. Number 2. Iron Man early animated concept era, 1988 development period. Before Iron Man became a global icon, animation studios quietly experimented with early concepts during the late 80s. These ideas never fully materialized, but they shaped how the character would eventually be portrayed. The focus was not heroism, it was guilt. Tony Stark was framed as a man trapped by his own inventions. Weapons deals, corporate pressure, and personal ego formed the backbone of early animated planning. He was not charming, he was dangerous to himself and others. What makes this era comeback worthy is its restraint. It did not glorify technology, it feared it. Stark intelligence was portrayed as a curse that created more problems than it solved. That perspective feels shockingly modern. A revival inspired by this lost direction could finally give Iron Man an animated series rooted in consequence rather than spectacle. Corporate ethics, addiction to power, and moral accountability. The 80s almost gave us that version. It deserves a second chance. Number 1. Spider-Man and Marvel 80s animation legacy. The greatest reason these cartoons deserve a comeback is not nostalgia, it is unfinished identity. The 80s Marvel animated era was experimental, unstable, and emotionally brave. It did not know what superheroes were supposed to be yet. That uncertainty created risk. Characters were allowed to fail. Stories ended without triumph. Heroes were lonely, angry, or unsure. That emotional honesty disappeared for years as formulas took over. A modern comeback should not remake these shows scene for scene. It should revive their spirit. Character first. Consequence always. No easy victories. No constant jokes. These cartoons were quietly teaching audiences that heroism hurts. That lesson feels more necessary now than ever. These Marvel cartoons were not perfect, but they were fearless. They took risks before the rules existed. A true comeback would honor that courage, not by copying the past, but by finishing what it started.